Ruth Miller is a Denaina Athabascan and Ashkenazi Russian Jewish woman raised here in Anchorage, Alaska. She is a member of the Chuthyung tribe, and she has roots in Bristol Bay, where her family descended downriver after leaving the Lake Iliamna region. Ruth recently graduated from Brown University, built on occupied Wampanoag and Narragansett lands, and received her BA in Critical Development Studies with a focus on Indigenous resistance and liberation. She has worked many years towards Indigenous rights and advocacy and climate justice in Alaska, nationally and internationally. Proud to call her a friend. Everyone, please welcome Ruth to lead us in another land acknowledgement.
I did not know that Genevieve was introducing me like that. I'm so sorry. I'm also going to keep on my perky because I'm still warming up here. First, I'd like to say that I'm so happy that we are occupying this space, that we are gathered in here today, the Anchorage Assembly. I am so proud to look out into the crowd and see these faces here advocating for equality, for women's rights, for trans rights, for the rights of all of our community members in a space like this. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yachlidu, Ruth Miller Shiiji, Denaina Kanaga Shafkun Kanash, Chiriang Ethnena Shiite, Eko Kathnen Shugu Shikaye Kilanda, Degeye Kak Eko Kathnen, Chiknek Halikidiki, Chiknek Chinan Fukut Sitsne Ninhadal. My name is Ruth Miller. As Genevieve told you, I am a Denaina Athabascan Alaska Native woman who was raised here in Anchorage. My family's from the upper Iliamna region, and we descended down into Bristol Bay, where we also grew our roots there. And I am so happy to welcome you to Degeyekak, otherwise known as Anchorage, here in this inlet called Tekatino. And when I was asked to do a land acknowledgement, it occurred to me that most people would stop there. They would say who the tribe was that traditionally occupied this land, and that is where the action would end. But that is not what a land acknowledgement means. When we deeply acknowledge a land, when we acknowledge waters, when we acknowledge airs, it is an expression of gratitude. It is an expression of reverence for the sacredness, for the generosity of those lands that have hosted us here today, that have hosted my ancestors for millennia. It is a commitment to continue to protect, to continue to defend those lands, and it is also an expression of gratitude for those stewards, for those protectors that have cared for this land, that have built relationship with this land, that have sent love into this land for so many generations. And today here in Anchorage, Degeyekak, those relatives that have stewarded this land are the Denaina Athabascan, my people. When we think about our lands, when we think about that enduring relationship, we also must acknowledge that these groups that have cared for these lands have grown with this land, have evolved with this land, that our DNA is so deeply intertwined with this land that our bodies respond to the unique and specific environment that we find here in Alaska, that our bodies are best nurtured by the salmon from our waters, by the whales and the seals and the walrus from our seas, from the caribou and the moose on our land, that we are so deeply intertwined with our lands and the creatures, the relatives that roam it, that Indigenous rights are environmental rights, that when we gather here to advocate for women, we are advocating for Indigenous women. When we gather here to advocate for Indigenous women, we are advocating for the safety and protection of our lands and our waters and our airs, and that these issues are inseparable. It is Indigenous people that have grown knowledge and wisdom from these lands for millennia. Once an elder told me, we asked him what subsistence means. And he said, it is when the berries are ripe and you go and pick them. That is what it means to exist so deeply with the land that you cannot separate your thriving, your nurturing, your food from the cycling of the seasons, from the health and well-being of our plant relatives. When we exist so intertwined, we know within our bodies and our hearts and our spirits that the well-being of our lands is our well-being as peoples. And as the first climate scientists, it is also this unique Indigenous knowledge that allows us to steward the climate justice fight in these contentious times. As the first climate scientists, we are not only on the front lines of the climate justice fight, but we are on the front lines suffering from climate change in our state. Our communities, our families are the ones slipping into the sea, are the ones facing melting permafrost, the threat of changing migration patterns for our caribou. We are the ones facing uncertainty for our future after millennia of deep relationship. It is also our Indigenous women who are on the front lines of suffering. It is our Indigenous women who go missing. It is our Indigenous women who are murdered at rates disproportional to any other demographic in the world. So when you are here advocating for women, you must also remember the Indigenous women who are suffering directly from the man camps built to support outside extraction in our state that rape our women as they rape our lands. That is what we are gathered here to put an end to. It is also the preservation of our lands, the preservation of our plant and animal relatives, the preservation of our women. An elder shared as well that in this time we must remember that we are sharing home here, and that we, the Indigenous people of Alaska, are hosts, and that we, as hosts of this land, we who have this ancestral knowledge and deep kinship with this land, are here again to steward the climate justice fight, are here again to steward the fight for the rights of women. But that also means that you, as guests, have protocol you must follow. As guests on these lands, as guests here in Digay-Kak, you must also commit to advocating for the protection of those lands, the protection of those waters, the sanctity of our bodies, the safety of our communities. As guests, you have a commitment to continue to defend and protect all that is sacred here. So I am honored to gather here with you today. As I shared when we were outside, every footstep that we take here together is a healing one. It resonates deep in the earth. The earth feels the weight of our footsteps marching for change. It hears the sound of our footsteps chanting that we will not tolerate hate, that we will not tolerate injustice, we will not tolerate inequality any longer. And so as we gather here today, as we acknowledge the land, as we express our infinite gratitude to Nakaltani for the opportunity to gather here today, to build a community and a future that is stronger than the one we have seen thus far, I'm excited to continue building for the next 7 generations, a community that is deeply committed to decolonization, re-indigenization, and a commitment to always falling in love with this home that we all share. Chickenick, thank you.